Smarter than you, smarter than you, smarter than you. Can't you see I'm smarter than you, smarter than you, smarter than you. Can't you see that?
And welcome to the Dave Dynasty Show, special Graham's Gallery edition. I am joined, as always, by the most educated man in professional wrestling, Dr. Jerry Graham Jr. Good doctor, how are you today?
I'm very well, thank you, but it's the most highly educated.
Most highly. I get that.
Not just the most educated, most highly educated.
Most highly. I think I get that wrong every time. The most highly educated man, excuse me. So today we're going to talk about the Great Wojo, a man you are very, very familiar with. And
a friend since grade school.
That's right. We've got some listener questions to ask about that. So let's give a little kind of a professional background on Wojo. Jump in here anytime. Correct me if anything I say is wrong.
Okay.
Wojo began weight training and amateur wrestling at a very young age, correct?
That's correct. I'd say probably 4th or 5th grade.
Okay, and then obviously excelled right from the get-go, was a state champion in Ohio, 67, 68 in high school.
Yep.
Went on to the University of Toledo where he won a national title in 71, was a 4-time AAU national champ. And made the 1980 U.S. Olympic team, but obviously did not get to compete because the U.S. boycotted.
13-time national AAU champion.
13
Not 4. 13.
Oh, okay.
That's freestyle and Greco-Roman over the years, yes. 13-time national AAU champion.
That's impressive.
Go on. Okay.
Well, and then he made the 1980 U.S. Olympic team. Didn't get to compete because the U.S. boycotted.
Yeah.
And there was an alternate also in 84 and 88. Does that all sound correct?
No. He quit in 80.
Okay.
You got to, first of all, he got national attention when he made the 1968 Olympic team as an alternate while still a senior in high school.
Okay.
And the guy that beat him out for the spot was Bob Roop, and he beat Wojo by 1 point.
Oh.
And that same year, as a senior high school, Wojo beat Bob Roop for the national AAU championship. Mm-hmm. So that Wojo was getting attention when he was a senior at Whitmer. So 1968 Olympics, he was an alternate. In the 1972 Olympics, he made the team as Greco-Roman, was ready to go to Germany. When Chris Taylor's people decided they wanted Chris Taylor to wrestle both freestyle and Greco-Roman.
Okay.
So there's a big to-do about it. And so finally, this is the edict. This shows you, when politics are involved, it doesn't matter which right or wrong. And I'll explain why. Chris Taylor wanted to go, he already made it freestyle. He wanted to take Wojo's Greco spot. So here's what the AAU edict was. Okay, they can have a wrestle-off, but Chris Taylor has to show overwhelming superiority to take Wojo's spot. That was the Olympic, whoever runs the Olympic, it might be the Olympic Committee, but whoever's in charge of the Olympics, that was the edict. Mm-hmm. So they wrestled to a draw, went to overtime and it stayed a draw. That alone should have kept Wojo on the team because that was not overwhelming superiority, a draw.
Right.
But they ordered another match with the same bylaws. It has to be tremendously overwhelming, and they wrestled to a draw, and then Taylor beat Wojo by 1 point in the overtime, and he kicked Wojo off the team.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, Chris Taylor was a friend of mine as well, but that cost him the gold medal because he got dropped on his head in the Greco-Roman competition by an East German named Wilfrido Dietrich. Mm-hmm. Dietrich was his last name.
Yeah.
Okay. And that shook him up, and he ends up losing to the Russian by 1 point, going for the gold medal in freestyle.
Yeah.
Well, my opinion was if he would have concentrated on freestyle, he wouldn't have dropped on his head. He would have been a gold medal winner.
Yep.
Like I said, Chris was a friend of mine as well. Wojo and me are tight buddies, don't get me wrong. I'm with Wojo on this whole thing.
Yeah.
I'm saying I'm not going to sit here and demonize Chris Taylor because he wanted to do it, but it wasn't he that kicked Wojo off the team. It was the powers that be, and it didn't do the Olympic team any good.
Yeah. And Taylor,
76 Wojo.
Oh, and Taylor was a huge man. Wasn't he was a monster? I mean, he was
weighed well over 450, 460 pounds. Well, Wojo had 5 wins over him in the amateurs. A lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah.
Just that when it came to the Olympics, Wojo didn't go. Then Wojo was a alternate in the 76 Olympics, and then he was finally made the 80 Olympic team, and then they boycotted. Wojo was so disgusted, he could have gone out for the 84 team because they weren't counting professional wrestling as the same sport as amateur wrestling.
Right.
So there's no problem going back and forth. But Wojo was so disgusted he didn't want to go.
Yeah.
And when the Russians boycotted us, Wojo would have been an easy gold medal winner because all the competition was coming from the communist countries.
Yeah.
So, so as a matter of fact, Wojo had wins over both the gold medal winners, freestyle and Bruce Baumgartner, and gold medal winner. I can't think of his name right now. He's from Ann Arbor, right? I can't think of his name right now. But Wojo beaten both of the gold medal winners. So Wojo got a raw deal, I think, but it's history now.
Yep. It was, I believe, shortly after the 80 boycotts when Wojo started training, right, for professional.
Yeah, right after.
So how did that all begin? How did that contact get made? And that.
Well, Wojo and I had been friends for years. I'd been a pro wrestler for years. I started in the early 70s. So he said he wanted to turn pro. So I just started. I says I started training him. I trained him at Torio's gym, and Wojo started wrestling, and he did very well for himself.
Yeah.
He was his heart was in the business. A lot of these guys in the amateurs, they look at the pro wrestling, it's so different, they're not really enthused about it.
Yeah.
But Wojo was enthused, and his heart was in the business.
Yeah. Was Wojo ever a fan as a kid and growing up? And then?
No, not really.
No, okay.
Not really. He would look at the professional wrestling as a way to make money, but when he got into it, he became enthused about being a wrestler. I was a fan, as we talked about.
Right, yeah.
I was definitely a fan, but Wojo, I mean, he might have watched wrestling once in a while on TV or something, but he's not what you'd call a fan. Like most pro wrestlers started as a fan.
Yeah.
Most of us did, including me.
Yeah. And after only a couple years in, Wojo's the WWA champion. So did it take much convincing for Bruiser to make that switch, or did he automatically see Wojo and think, this is my guy here?
He liked Wojo right off the bat. So did Wilbur Snyder.
Yeah.
Wilbur was still there, too. We started Wojo, and some of the guys were a little hesitant, but then they saw that Wojo wanted to be a part of this thing. Bruiser had called me up. He wanted me to train another guy that Wojo had wrestled with in the Olympic trials called Pete Lee, and he was a big 400-pounder, too, but he told everybody he was going to start breaking arms and legs, so I got back to me, so I told Bruiser to get somebody else to train him. I want somebody that's heart's in the business, not somebody that wants to be the junkyard dog. I mean, not all respects to junkyard dog wrestler.
Yeah.
When a guy that really wants to be king of the hill, I don't need a guy like that.
Yeah. So, do you know, was there ever any interest in Wojo from some of the other promoters, like a Vern Gagne? Wojo seems like that's Gagne's kind of guy.
Yeah, well, Gagne talked to Wojo, and he never called him back. And I wasn't privy to the conversation. Maybe Wojo said something in it. But when Wojo relayed the conversation to me, I saw nothing at all that would have upset Gagne. But because Gagne liked these big time amateurs.
Yeah, right.
Roski was an amateur, and so on and so forth. And Vince McMahon didn't have any interest at all in Wojo. I guess to make us happy, he gave us one match at Cobo in Detroit.
Yeah.
Gave Wojo a big fat slob but couldn't do anything. And believe me, you're going to look bad if you don't have a guy that can work with you.
Yeah.
And it wasn't Wojo's fault. I guess the guy just totally useless.
Yeah.
And but I always thought, and once again, what do I know? This is the thought I had. Are you familiar with the term policeman in wrestling?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Okay. I always thought he'd be a perfect policeman for the WW. Well, now he was WWF then.
Uh-huh.
McMahon couldn't see the angle. But imagine going into a town and sending Wojo, if they wanted to have him to a local college, work out with the team, beat all the guys on the team, train them, then they could see him in the arenas wrestling with the pros. And Wojo had the right attitude. I mean, let's face it, between you and I, if Wojo and Hulk Hogan are going to have what we call a shoot, Hogan would have been lucky the last 20 seconds.
Right,
That's not in fact, do you remember a wrestler named Sailor White?
Yeah, I do, yeah. Huh?
Okay. Well, we were up in Canada once, and Sailor White tells Wojo, he says, here's what I'm going to do. He says, I'm going to lay flat on my belly. He had a Newfoundland accent. I'm going to lay flat on my belly like this, and you try and turn me over, and I'm going to fight you as hard as I can. And Sailor White was like 350. I mean, he's a big guy.
Yeah.
And tough, too. He says, and you try and turn me as hard as you can. I want you to go as hard as you can, and they'll see us struggling, and they'll see it. There's a struggle. So Wojo said, okay. So White gave him the sign, and White couldn't have turned himself over on his back as fast as Wojo turned him over. I mean, people don't realize. I mean, we're talking about wrestling. We're talking about sports entertainment. You talk about really, wrestling without the sports entertainment. There was nobody walking the United States and any of the wrestling promotions that could have come close to Wojo.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Absolutely.
Nobody.
Yeah.
And And a man like that should have gotten a bigger push, but the powers that be, those that pushed him, he drew money. George Cannon pushed him, Bruiser pushed him. Like they went down to Puerto Rico.
Yep.
And Carlos Colon, here's a guy that we could make a fortune. They didn't want me as a manager, so right off the bat that killed part of it. Then they give Wojo some guy that couldn't work. They made him go 30-minute Broadway.
Yeah.
And they weren't impressed with it. But you gotta think like Wojo. You gotta do it right. And they were just didn't know how to handle it. I'm not gonna say they were clueless because Colon and those guys had a long successful run there, but they just didn't know how to handle Wojo. And Bulldog Don Kent was trying to tell them, and they wouldn't listen to him.
Yeah, and didn't Wojo also went to Japan? Didn't he? I think maybe a little later, but
yes,
yeah,
yes. Those matches he had, some of the matches used to be on YouTube, but they've been taken off now for some reason. I've noticed. But, he was there for a promotion there, and once again, they never asked him back. But he was there, so. I never made Japan, so it's just I made the Middle East. I was in Kuwait, Jordan, and places like that. But I'm not complaining about my career. But I'm saying one of the things is everybody goes to Japan. As a matter of fact, Dick the Bruiser just started sending guys to Japan just before he died.
Right.
He sent some of our crew to Japan on the first tour. I was scheduled to go on the second tour, but then Bruiser died, and somebody else took it over. I wasn't part of what he had in mind, so I was within a few months of going to Japan. But no. And I still am happy with my career and had a good time when I do it over again in a minute. Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. And one of the things that a lot of people remember about Wojo is the $10,000 challenge. So tell me how that came about and that whole idea and that whole concept.
Well, the idea was we wanted to prove to Wojo, to the fans and to the world that Wojo was the toughest man in the world. So we would put up $10,000 if anybody could pin Wojo in 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. And nobody did. A couple people asked to the limit with him. Wojo couldn't pin them, but the idea was they had to pin Wojo. And they couldn't do it. And then we put out a $100,000 challenge to Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan and Nick Bockwinkel. And, of course, none of those guys would want anything to do with Wojo. That's, we're just doing it to be an annoyance. I mean, it didn't affect their promotions one bit. I'm not trying to make it out bigger than what it was. We just wanted to establish that nobody could beat Wojo.
Right.
And nobody could.
Yeah. So what you said a couple guys went to the limit with him where Wojo could be. Was there ever a fear that what if somebody gets lucky on Wojo and gets that pin? And
well, we had $10,000. We'd give it to him.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, we're not going to advertise something we couldn't do. But you got to remember, in amateur wrestling, they're very strict on stalling.
Right.
But we weren't very strict on stalling. So it'd be like saying, take Muhammad Ali in his absolute prime.
Yep. And
tell somebody, you've got 5 minutes to knock Ali out.
Yeah, okay.
And all he has to do is not get knocked out. So he might even give up the round because they won't call for stalling. So it's the same thing on Sugar Ray Leonard or anybody like that. All they had to do was last out the round. Nobody could touch him. And so most of the time, Wojo pinned these guys in 10, 15 seconds. Once the Pontiac Silverdome, he pinned 12 guys from the audience.
Yeah.
He was utterly exhausted.
Yeah.
But he was absolutely the finest wrestler in the business from the early 80s to the early 90s. That's nobody that could beat him.
Yeah. Okay, and then in 86, Wojo drops the belt for a period to Scott Steiner. What did Wojo think of Scott Steiner at that time?
Well, Wojo introduced me to Scott Steiner. He knew him from the amateurs. He went to the University of Michigan, and I trained Scott Steiner as well.
Yeah.
And we just thought we'd do something to surprise the people, which proves that if there's some sense to it, Wojo's heart was in the business.
Yeah.
He wasn't, he wasn't thinking he was above doing something like that to draw money, and that drew us a lot of money, in which Wojo had a partnership in the promotion.
Yeah.
So put a lot of money in Wojo's pocket as well.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Was he excited to be working with someone that had that amateur background that maybe he could really get in there and go with? And
well, Wojo was a very closed, tight person, even to me. I'm one of his best friends. He wasn't. I can't say if he was excited or not. I said he brought Scott around and we trained him together. Really, I say I trained him. Wojo, we trained him together. I was a head trainer though, but to make things history straight here, Wojo helped me train him with no question. And I'm sure he was happy to wrestle with him, but I mean, he wasn't emotional like a lot of guys, including myself.
Yeah.
He's kind of he played his hand close to the vest, like they say.
Right. Yeah. So, and what'd you guys think when Scott left to go to Memphis? I mean, was it a surprise, or was it kind of that's that time for him to move on and do something else?
No. I had. He told me he was going, and I had. I would never hold anybody back from bettering themselves. The only thing, the many disappointments with Steiner was he told me he'd come back for one last match to wrap up a program, and he told us to be there. If he told me he wouldn't have been there, I could have changed things around, At the last minute, he doesn't show up, and we had to make a last-minute change, and people were disappointed he wasn't there.
Yeah.
Another thing to do to the guy that started you was he could have at least told me he wasn't, he's got a, nobody's taken off. And I don't think he did very well in Memphis, but then he went down to, he went to Atlanta first and didn't do well.
Yeah.
Then he went to Memphis, and he did okay. Then he took it back to Atlanta, and he was okay then.
Yeah.
I remember that, and I had to think for a second.
Yeah.
But he was a pretty good wrestler. No question. He had a great trainer, so what do you expect?
That's right. You've heard him here on the Dave Dynasty Show as a guest and as host of the monthly Graham's Gallery episodes. And now you can hear his stories. You can own a copy of Confessions of a Big-Time Wrestler, the audio book from Dr. Jerry Graham Jr., former multi-tag team champion in WWA and owner of Bruiser Bedlam. You can hear all of his encounters with the various wrestlers, places, and promotions he's worked as he tells about his colorful, long, and illustrious career. You can have your own copy for only $25, and that includes shipping and handling. It's very simple. Go on Facebook, look up Jerry Jaffe, Jaffe, send him a private message, and make arrangements to purchase a copy of Confessions of a Big-Time Wrestler now. You will not regret this purchase. In the mid-'80s, Spike Huber tried to run opposition to Bruiser a little bit. What did you guys in Wojo, what did you think about that? Having a guy you guys had known and worked with, now all of a sudden trying to run opposition.
I knew very little about it. Bruiser didn't say anything to me about it, and I don't recall it ever being a topic. I mean, I heard Spike was running, but if it bothered Bruiser, he never said anything to me about not one word. I mean, I knew he was running opposition, but Spike is always my friend, and I've seen him since then, and I've never had anything but nice things to say about Spike Huber.
Yeah.
They started opposition there. It was time. Things were getting sparse in Indiana, but the problem with them is if you don't have TV, you're just pulling your chain.
Yeah.
You have the greatest wrestlers, the greatest matches. You've got to have television.
You're right.
That's it.
Do you think it's just that Bruiser mentality of they don't have me, it doesn't make any difference. They're not going to be able to take my spot and
I don't know. You can. That's a good point. I'll tell you something. Wojo and Bruiser were going to wrestle in a steel cage in Indianapolis, and that same night, just a few blocks down the street, Hulk Hogan was wrestling Paul Orndorff. And I said, Bruiser, we should maybe change the show. Or he says, nope, we're scheduled to run. And we had 3,000 people at our show. I'm sure they had 10 or 12 at the Indianapolis show, but we had 3,000 people, and the Tyndale Armory was packed for people to see the cage match. So there's something to be said about that. We had our fans. Of course, overall, long haul, obviously the WWE wins. The WWE's only real threat was WCW, and it wasn't a threat because they didn't have the right people running that promotion. It was just so I've said this a million times. If they had put Terry Funk in charge, Vince McMahon would have had some sleepless nights. Yeah. Because if you recall, they started out getting better ratings. They started out with better TV clearances. They had everything. They had the upper hand, and I'm sure Turner had as much money as McMahon. So Turner had all the cards on his side, but he had the wrong people running. Ole Anderson was not the person to run that promotion, and neither was any of the other guys they brought along. But they had guys that could do it. My number one pick would have been, I'm not even saying me, I'm just saying neutral. As a neutral observer, Terry Funk should have been the guy running that promotion. Yeah. That's just it. Yeah. And if they wanted to get a long shot, they could have, I don't know if they'd been interested or not, but Mark Lewin could have done it as well. But he may not have been interested. But they did offer the spot to Bruiser, and he turned it down, which was very, upsetting to me, because if Bruiser would have taken the spot running the Atlanta promotion, where I would have been. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but they offered it to him. Remember they brought him in as a special referee for a Sting versus Scorpion match.
Yeah.
The Scorpion turned out to be Ric Flair.
Yeah.
But that was the time they were talking to Bruiser about running the show for him. And Bruiser would have done a better job than anybody they got.
Yep, I agree. Yeah. So did Wojo? Did he stick out all the way to the end of the Bruiser Bedlam until you guys decided to close shop? Was he with you all the way to the end?
Oh yeah. Absolutely. And you got to remember, our last year of Bruiser Bedlam, we made a lot of money.
Right, yeah.
Everybody's, that doesn't know what they're talking about, says he went broke, he went out of business. We chose to go out of business because we saw what was coming.
Right, yeah. Obviously.
It was Aldous Huxley that said, inevitable consequences are beacon for wise men and scarecrows for fools. Yeah. Well, we decided that we could compete with the WWE. Well, when Turner started going national, there was just too many big promotions. They were coming to Toledo, each one 3 times a year, so had 6 big shows in Toledo. So it just didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So we had the Leon Spinks fight with Wojo, which we made a lot of money with. We had some guaranteed shows, but we all agreed to liquidate the company and quit.
Yeah.
And we did. And some of our guys, like Gary Warnchak and that, they went on to start their own promotion, which I worked for them. I told them I wasn't interested in investing because they didn't have television.
Yeah.
And if you don't have TV, it's not going to work.
Yeah. And I know Wojo, he worked a little bit after that here or there, and I think he did some more in Japan. Did he just kind of see that? Was it for him personally kind of that same thing of, well, the times are changing, the market's changing, maybe it's just time for me to get out?
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you a funny story about that. They got the MMA now, but that started as a promotion in Japan called Shoot Wrestling.
Yeah.
And what's the guy's name? It wasn't the WWE that was a big champion there. I can't.
Severn?
Oh, I can't. Dan Severn.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So anyway, Dan Severn was over there and he started Shoot Wrestling. But anyway, the Shoot Wrestling people called me because I was Wojo's manager. I said they were interested in Wojo come to Japan and participate in the Shoot Wrestling. And I said, you know something? This kind of a deal, I'd rather you just negotiate with Wojo directly because I'm liable to make something that he doesn't like or whatever, and I can handle local promoters go, but this is a big deal. Yeah. So they said, no problem. They called Wojo. And they seemed to be making a deal until they asked Wojo how old he was, and he was, so he's 40. And he says, well, it's too bad. We can't use you. You're too old. And Wojo says, well, if you don't want to use me because I'm 40, that's fine, but I can kick anybody's butt that you got working over there. And I told Dan Severn, Wojo said that. He said, he's right, including me.
Yeah.
That's exactly what Dan Severn told me.
Yeah, I mean.
He said, Wojo could have come to Shoot Wrestling and nobody could have beat him.
Yeah, well, Severn fought. I think he still fights every now and then. He fought well into his 40s and whatever on his career.
Well, Severn was a tough cookie, and he was a nice guy. And I have nothing but good things to say about him.
Yeah.
And maybe he could have beat Wojo. I don't know, but he was polite enough that he made that remark. Maybe he didn't mean it, but he thought Wojo should have brought him over. He didn't think 40 was an obstacle.
Yeah. Do you know did Severn and Wojo know each other? Kind of being both in the Midwest.
Oh
yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wojo knows Kurt Angle. If anybody's been involved in amateur wrestling, Wojo knows them.
Yeah, absolutely.
He still goes to all the tournaments. Even to this day, he still goes to tournaments, coaches some guys, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But,
do you know after when Wojo kind of retired, was there ever any offers, any talks of anybody of bringing him in to be a trainer, an agent, anything like that, with given his background and experience?
No.
Just
he wasn't interested.
Oh, no.
He didn't want to do interviews. He didn't even want to do interviews on the on newspaper or radio anymore. In fact, one time a disc jockey calls me and says, "I'd like to interview Wojo." And I said, "Well, I'll call Wojo and ask him." So Wojo says he'd do it. So I called the disc jockey back, and I said, "Okay." And Wojo calls me back and he changes his mind. He doesn't want to do it. So I called the disc jockey back, and the disc jockey's mad at me. That's why I just let guys make their own deals. I'm a firm believer in that. So Wojo was a great guy, and but now he's kind of he keeps to himself. We keep in touch by phone. We go out to eat once in a while and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But he's kind of a stay-at-home, but he still goes on all the amateur matches and watches a lot of what's going on there.
Right. Yeah. Well, I have long said Wojo is one of the most underappreciated talents, in my opinion, in the history of wrestling. That not enough people know.
No, you're right.
Great Wojo is. Tell me what your thoughts are on that. Tell me what you think about him being underappreciated.
Well, I think he was totally underappreciated. I think if they wanted to take the time, they could have made another Lou Thesz out of him. I mean, he could beat everybody. Lou Thesz could beat everybody.
Yeah.
They could have brought him up. They could have sent him to various training camps and stuff, and but they chose not to do it. And the thing is that Wojo, he had good interviews and stuff when he was on his own, no question. He has a full package. But when he was with me, we created what they call a synergy.
Right.
1 + 1 = 3.
Mm-hmm.
And with me managing Wojo and running and hiding behind him, it was so real because little kids used to protect me. So whenever anybody would have beat me up, I'd run and hide behind Wojo. so I just started doing that in the ring. But I mean, we talk and we were just a unit. Wojo was great a wrestler and had a lot of potential, like you said, that wasn't realized because the promoters were short-sighted.
Yeah.
He could have been another big star. And he was pretty big. I mean, he wrestled in Chicago for Gagne a little bit.
Right, yeah.
Via Bruiser, the Chicago shows, WWA, and Detroit. I guess he's been to Japan. He's been to Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
He's had his run, but he could have been bigger. But, the guys at the top decide what's going to happen, and Wojo wasn't in their cards.
Yeah. I think I've long thought if Wojo had been 10 or 15 years earlier, he would have been perfect and would have been one of the biggest names in wrestling. He'd fit right in with the Briscoes and the Funks, and he could have been. Well,
Wojo told me that his plans was after the '72 Olympics was to turn pro.
Yeah.
But since he didn't make the team, he had that plan to make the team, and then finally he made it 8 years later. They boycotted him, which was ridiculous because the Olympics, the spirit of the Olympics is that even the Nazis were at the Olympics. And I have no love for Nazis, don't get me wrong. I despise them. But you're supposed to put all politics aside,
right?
And you're supposed to compete as athletes.
Yep.
That's why, like with Lebanon, it's just these people just don't get it. I think it was the Lebanese team boycotted Israel or something like that because of, I mean, that's ludicrous. I mean, the idea is that the athletes are supposed to get together and see what they have in common. And Jimmy Carter didn't understand that. He didn't understand a lot of stuff. But and one thing you understand was that that's what the Olympics were for. I often said this. He had a son they called Chip Carter.
Uh-huh.
I wonder if Chip Carter had been on the swimming team that year if he had boycotted the Olympics.
That's good point. Yeah. So I know you've talked about Wojo being kind of quiet and kind of reserved, and I don't want to go into it too deep, but talk to us about what Wojo's like as a friend, as a man outside of the wrestling business.
Oh, he's a loyal friend. He is absolutely, and I'm loyal to him as well. If something comes up that I need Wojo with whatever, he's right there, and he always has been. I've always been there for him.
Yeah.
That may be one of the reasons that the big promoters didn't like him because they used to they like to hire sneaks and backstabbers, and Wojo was the kind of a guy that was straight up front, and he was just absolutely. I mean, he was 5'11". He was 285 pounds. He could bench press well over 500 pounds, and he could wrestle, and he had the flair for being under the lights. But like I said, he was a complete package. But they just, for whatever reason, I'm surprised Gagne didn't jump on him. But I don't know. McMahon, I realize he plays in his own sandbox.
Right. Yeah.
He does very well. So, but I don't think he had much use for shooters over there.
Yeah.
Possibly, like I said, it's. I gave a scenario where Wojo would come in and work out with the college team and stuff like that would have been a good thing to do. But something like that, maybe McMahon would think that wouldn't have been useful. They're too busy doing other things, which were very successful, and made him the greatest promoter of all time.
Yep.
Based on the one thing we look for: how many tickets do you sell?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, like you said,
how nice a guy are you?
Yeah, well, like I said, even after Wojo got out, even up to current day, he's very active in the amateur wrestling world. Goes to meets. I know he's He's coached high school. Helped with high school. I know his son. I believe his son coaches in a high school, and you see all the time. I see pictures of guys that at an amateur meet or whatever in the Midwest, and there's a picture with Wojo, and so he's still passing that on, his knowledge, and he's still got that side of it. And so you have any final comments that you want to make on Wojo before we wrap this episode up?
Well, only final comments. The past conversation we had speaks for itself. Wojo was a stand-up guy. He was sincere. Like me, his word was his bond. Although wrestling, that's not a very good thing to do because I've been screwed more than he's been. But I've had a lot of people. It's just a business that's full of snakes and vipers.
Yep.
But But all I can say is that he was the real deal. He was he was a real wrestler. He was a real showman. He was an articulate interview man on the microphone. He could do anything. He brought credibility to the business by beating all these guys. And anybody, he wanted to show he was the world champion. It means anybody in the world should get a chance. And it was just a wonderful time in my life. And I hope Wojo looks back fine. I know that he does. Looks back finally on his wrestling career because it was something I would. A lot of guys look back and say, "I wish I could have changed my life." There's a few things I would have done differently, but overall, my life went just the way it should have gone. I think.
Yeah.
I didn't get everything I wanted either, but I was thankful for what I got.
Yep. So. Absolutely. So. Okay.
Okay. Well, Mr. Dynasty, it's always your pleasure talking to me.
Absolutely. Thank you, Doctor, for coming on and talking about Wojo and enlightening the people a little bit on the greatness of the Great Wojo.
Anytime I can be of help to a great man like yourself, just let me know.
All right. Thank you.
When am I going to see you in Toledo? When am I going to see you in Toledo?
Hopefully soon. I keep looking at dates and trying to find one that I can get over there.
On June 10th.
Okay.
It's a Sunday.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to give you a heads up. I am going to be debuting a new wrestler. It's going to make Pedro the Clown look like a choir boy.
All right.
And we're bringing him in. It's going to be the most savage, despicable, horrible human being ever enter a wrestling ring. In fact, he's going to change the entire face of wrestling forever.
All right.
I found him in the Gobi Desert, in the wilds of Asia.
All right.
Where, the natives there say the Gobi Desert's where the world ends and hell begins. And that's where I discovered this man. So I would love to see you at our June 10th show.
Yep.
If you're going to come, let me know, and I'll make sure that you get the royal treatment.
All right. Sounds good. I will try to make it over Sunday, June 10th, Powerbomb Pro Wrestling in Toledo, Ohio. Dr. Graham unveiling his newest monster to the world, so everybody try to get there and see it. So
it's going to be something they'll never forget. They'll always say, where were you when Dr. Graham revealed, I can't say his name yet, and they'll say, well, man, I was there. I was at ringside.
Absolutely. Before we get out of here and close this episode, we have a new feature we're going to debut, and that is classic audio from a classic episode of Graham's Gallery from the past. We're going to take you back now to an episode of Bruiser Bedlam from 1986. This is the Graham's Gallery segment with Dr. Jerry Graham Jr., and of course, befitting of this episode here at the Dave Dynasty Show's Graham's Gallery, the good doctor's guest on this episode is the Great Wojo.
Welcome to Graham's Gallery, a neutral and professional television journalistic piece featuring the greatest professional wrestlers in the world today. In the past weeks, we've had some good wrestlers. In the past weeks, we've had some great wrestlers. But today, it's my honor, my distinguished pride. I'm just so happy to have the heavyweight champion of the world, the WWE champion, the Great Wojo. Wojo, welcome to Graham's Gallery.
Thanks. It's really great to be on a first-class show like this.
Well, Wojo, you know, you are a legend. I mean, you are one of the few Americans to be in the Russian Hall of Fame of Wrestling for your amateur accomplishments. You were the only person, I believe, ever to make the heavyweight slot as an alternate in the Olympic team when you were still a senior in high school. I mean, you were a 13-time national AAU champion. You were on 4 Olympic teams. You were 3 Pan American times champion. You were so many times you've toured the world. You've toured Russia. You've toured Mexico. You've been to the Canary Islands, South America. You have amateur titles longer than anybody's arm. It's amazing. And then you turned professional, and yet I've been going over your record. I noticed you had a lot of wins early in your career. In fact, all wins. You didn't seem to be in the top slots. You didn't seem to be making the big money. I'm sure a lot of fans want to know, was there any certain point in your career when you began to be a real success as a wrestler, became a top contender, and eventually the WWA champion?
Oh, you're absolutely right. 2 years after being United States Olympic champion, I was undefeated. I think I had about 100 professional fights. Not one main event. And I wasn't going anywhere. Instead of wrestling on the weekends, I was loading trucks on the dock. And that's when you came into my life, and you turned it all around. You got me the best matches, and eventually now I'm champion, world champion.
In other words, you owed all to Dr. Graham.
Oh, absolutely. I was about ready to retire. That's all there was to it until the doctor came into my life.
Now, let me ask you this, Wojo. You are probably the only wrestler in the world today that tours the country in states where the commission allows it, and you actually accept challenges from the audience. You tell anybody, if there's anybody out here, any college wrestlers, any high school wrestlers, any other professional wrestlers any tough men, football players, anybody that wants to step in the ring with you, you have a special challenge match where if they can pin you in 5 minutes, you give them $10,000. Would you care to elaborate on this?
That's absolutely right. It's thanks to the confidence that you have in me and thanks to the $10,000 you put up for me, I'll take on any human being in the world. And if they can pin me in 5 minutes, they'll get $10,000.
Now, a lot of wrestling fans come up to me, Wojo, and they say, Dr. Graham, we watch this wrestling program, we watch that wrestling program. Everywhere we go, there seems to be somebody claiming to be the world heavyweight champion. We watch this cable station, we watch this local channel. Why do you claim to be the heavyweight champion? Now, what credentials do you have that maybe somebody else doesn't have?
Well, let me tell you something. First of all, I was the United States Olympic champion in 1980. I beat, in the past, all the 1984 Olympic champions, and I've beaten all the professional champions, or all the professional wrestlers that I wrestled.
Right.
It's the only thing I can criticize you for as my manager. That I don't know it'll get me a match with the
Wojo, to defend myself, it's common knowledge to every champion anywhere from any wrestling promotion that I have a certified check posted for $100,000 to anybody that claims to be the world champion that wants to match you belt for belt to make an undisputed title unification, and they've all run like cowards. Every heavyweight champion, I believe there's about 3 other men claiming to be world champion, are like whipped puppies. They go to their promoters in New York City. They go to their promoters in Atlanta, Georgia. They say, Dr. Graham put up $100,000. The letters and cards are coming in. You're humiliating me. Don't make me wrestle Wojo. They beg them. They say, please don't wrestle Wojo. I want to be champion. I'll be champion of this. I'll be champion of that. But don't make me face Wojo for the belt because he'll beat me. $100,000. Not one of them have ever made $100,000.
And some classic audio there from Dr. Jerry Graham Jr., an episode of Graham's Gallery from Bruiser Bedlam in 1986 with guest Great Wojo. Very befitting of today's episode as we discuss the Great Wojo with the good doctor. And as always, you can find Graham's Gallery on Twitter at Dr. Graham Jr. That is just JR for Junior. Doctor spelled out DoctorGrahamJr at Dr. Graham Jr. on Twitter. And on Facebook, look up Graham's Gallery or Dr. Graham Jr. And you can like the Facebook page there. Through both those avenues, you can contact us, send in your questions, watch for information on upcoming episodes and what the themes and topics will be so that you can get your voice heard, as many of our listeners did today as we talked about the Great Wojo. Always good to talk to the good doctor and to be enlightened and to sit under the learning tree and soak in a little knowledge. So that is it for this episode of Graham's Gallery. Until next time, boys and girls, be good, be safe, and keep on growing.
Smarter than you, smarter than you, smarter than you. Can't you see I'm smarter than you, smarter than you, smarter than you. Can't you see? Bah!